Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Nice to see you guys. We're going to start with meditation like we do each morning. I'm going to just leave it to you guys to do your meditation. I'm just going to do chanting and then just go into meditation. What we usually do in the morning is the loving kindness meditation. If you guys would like to do that for yourself, you can do a little bit of breathing mindfulness at the beginning, then do your loving kindness meditation, back to the breathing mindfulness, and then back to the chanting. And this will give you guys a chance to stand up on your own 2 feet, because you're going to need to do that after the classes. Be able to do the meditations on your own. So remember the loving kindness meditation, the affirmations that I've been doing is just a generalized affirmations for you guys as I'm guiding students. But if I were you, what I would do is I would customize the meditation for your specific needs. Start with I, and then move maybe to a ring or two of individuals that you have loving kindness for, maybe move to a ring or two of people that you're more neutral about, and then move to a ring or two of people you do have anger and hatred towards, and then finish with all beings. And for me, I just use general statements like friends, family, things like this, because it applies to everyone. But if you hate somebody named Bob, then you're going to need to say, may Bob be peaceful, right? Or if you have resentment or hostility or bitterness or even just the slightest dislike, you're going to need to include either a person's name or a group of individuals or organization or things like that. And you'd like to do about 6 or 8 rings and then go back to the breathing mindfulness meditation. And then that's where at some point I'll come out with the chanting, and then we'll start class from there. When we start class, I'm going to be teaching you this topic of the path to enlightenment, practicing the path in the workplace. This is going to help you to understand how to apply the teachings of the Buddha in your professional life. And then after that, we have a topic of the art of the friendly no, how to say no without saying no. This will help you to build harmonious relationships, because one of the things that the unenlightened mind doesn't like is to hear the word no. So if people are inviting you to parties or they're asking to borrow money or things like this, you might find it a real struggle if you tell people, no, I can't come to your party. They're going to get painful feelings oftentimes and push you aside. So I'm going to teach you guys how to deal with those kinds of situations. So if you'd like to make a position for meditation, and then I'll just ease in with chanting, which you guys are welcome to join along in, and then just go ahead and do your meditations.
Can you remind us what you say when you do the compassion meditation?
The loving kindness, it's may I be peaceful, may I be safe, may I be well, may I be free of all discontentedness and the suffering it causes. So those 4 statements. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Abhivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Iti piso bhagava arahang สัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ หังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาพุทธังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวะมานุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone online who's joining us as well. Welcome to our class today. We just have a short little class today, and then we're going to actually be finished with our course. I have this topic of practicing the path in the workplace, and then we'll talk about the art of the friendly no, how to say no without saying no. As you're learning and practicing the path, the teachings of the Buddha, it's training your mind to eliminate those pollutions that he discovered, the 10 fetters. And these are things that you need to be able to ultimately understand: the core central path of the Buddha, the Eightfold Path, the 10 fetters, and all these other teachings that I share in the foundational programs and courses, retreats, and so forth and so on. As you're learning those things, you're going to need to be practicing them at different times in your life, all throughout your life, not only at home and in your personal life, but in your professional life too. People don't need to know that you're practicing the teachings of the Buddha. This is the natural laws of existence. So as you're practicing things like right intention, right speech, right action, and so forth and so on, you're going to be producing more and more harmonious relationships. People don't need to know you're practicing the teachings and then do something special for you just because you're practicing the teachings. Instead, it's about your decisions. So you can make certain decisions in your life, and as you're making those decisions, it's going to produce more and more wholesome results in your life. And there's certain things that the Buddha is teaching you about how to train your mind that, yes, it's going to help you in your personal life, but it's also going to help you in your professional life too. If you weren't practicing the teachings in your professional life, you wouldn't actually be able to get to enlightenment. It's not like, in your private life, you're practicing the teachings, and then when you go to work, you do something completely different. By the time you're training your mind and you're making your way to enlightenment, enlightenment, you're practicing the teachings all the time. And initially, it can be quite a challenge to bring your practice up to the point where you're practicing as an enlightened being. It can feel sometimes like a struggle, as we were talking about at different times in this course. But ultimately, as you're transforming your mind more and more, it's not a struggle. There's no effort to practice the teachings. By the time you get to enlightenment, it's effortless. It's actually a lot easier to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to people when you don't have those pollutions in your mind. And it's a lot easier to do that. But when the pollutions are in your mind and you're having to struggle to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, when you're working to get that ego out of there, it's really hard to push through those things. When you have anger and hatred, it's really hard to deal with that. It's like a burden that you're carrying around with these pollutions in the mind. But as you clear all of that out, life becomes easier and easier the more that you actually clear out your mind. So there's certain things that you can be doing at work in line with the teachings of the Buddha that's going to actually help you to move your mind to enlightenment. And you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment if you weren't practicing the teachings at work. But other people don't need to know that that's what you're doing. They're just going to be able to see that you're so polite and kind and friendly and respectful and generous and loving and compassionate. They're just going to see these qualities. They might not describe them that way, but they're going to feel it. So I'm going to describe to you the things that you can keep in mind as you're practicing in the workplace. And then, as we normally do, if you guys would like to ask questions, you have microphones here. You can ask any questions as we go. Those of you guys online, you can ask questions as well. You can put them into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom electronically and open up your mic and ask any and all questions that you like. So first, just like I've been teaching throughout this course with each one of these topics, the very first thing you always need to keep in mind is that your goal is to acquire wisdom. You need to develop the mind, and in order to develop the mind, you're going to need to acquire wisdom. You need to always be paying attention to developing your life practice. There's certain things in the workplace that you're going to learn and grow and develop, and you're going to need to pay attention to those and acquire wisdom. You're going to need to have a regular meditation practice and practice of generosity. That includes breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. It's really helpful in the morning before you go to work to do some loving kindness meditation. That's why here I've been doing loving kindness meditation in the morning and then breathing mindfulness in the afternoon. You might decide to keep with the same type of thing, because when you're going off to work, there's the potential for there to be certain attachments in your mind related to your work or your relationships at work. And if you have certain cravings, desires, attachments in your work, this can arise anger and hatred and ill will and frustration and bitterness and hostility. So if you can knock some of that down through loving kindness meditation in the morning, you can go off to work and be more loving and kind, right? When you're driving to work, even being more loving and kind as you're making your way to work, maintaining that loving kindness so that, yeah, people are going to cut you off in traffic, but you don't have to get angry about that. Just understand its impermanence. Because if you get angry on your way to work and then you cling to that and hold on to that, then when you walk into work, you're already going to be angry. And now it's going to be a challenge to have relationships at work. So you would like to be practicing your breathing mindfulness meditation, your generosity, and including your loving kindness meditation. And while you're at work, if you're able to get like a midday meditation in, this is really helpful. Whether it's going away outside your work environment, or nowadays, some companies have meditation rooms, or they have like rooms for nursing mothers to nurse. You can use these kinds of places like a conference room to do a little meditation. There were times when I was in the workplace that I used to actually go in the bathroom stall, and I would sit on the toilet. I didn't take the pants off. I just sat with my pants on because that was the place to get some private time. Nobody's going to bother me when I'm in the stall. So I would go in the stall and just sit there and meditate. Or if I was going to a meeting and I knew this meeting started at a certain time, I might show up early to this conference room because I knew it was empty, and I would go in there and meditate before the meeting started. So you can do these kinds of things and integrate this into your life. There was even times where when I was in the workforce, we all had calendars and we would all schedule meetings and send meeting requests to each other. And you could see your coworker's calendar before you scheduled a meeting with them. Well, I would put on my calendar blocked out times where I was, doing things which were like to meditate for myself. And I would block out my calendar for that so that people weren't able to schedule meetings with me during that time. I wouldn't label it as meditation because oftentimes, your boss might not be appreciative of that, or other people might try to infringe on that. But you can put different labels, right? I forget what I used to use, but I used to use something that it wasn't a lie. I think it was like off-site meeting, meeting with myself or something like that. Or it was like, or like a doctor's appointment, because I would like go to a chiropractor, get a bones adjusted, and then I would meditate, in the middle of the day. These are things that I would do. So you could put like doctor's appointment if you're like going away to do something like that. So you can schedule things like that on your calendar. You're going to need to eliminate complacency as it relates to the path to enlightenment. You haven't learned about the 5 hindrances and complacency, but we've talked about it a little bit in relationship to being complacent. If there's an unwholesome thought that comes up in your mind, if you do nothing about it, that's complacency. If you don't meditate, that's complacency. If you're not interested in coming to the temple and reading books and things like this, these are all things that are complacency, and it'll hinder you from getting to enlightenment. But some of these teachings that are related to the path to enlightenment and growth and development and progress can also be applied to the work environment. That if you were complacent in your work, meaning that you had certain projects and you delayed and delayed and delayed, and you were a procrastinator in terms of your work projects and assignments, you're not going to be very successful with your work. So this complacency that will hinder you from getting to enlightenment. If you were complacent in your work, it would hinder you from getting promotions at work. So you're not interested in being complacent as it relates to your work. Even if you have a project that say due on Friday, you're not interested in waiting till Thursday to start the project. Do a little bit on Monday, do a little bit on Tuesday, do a little bit on Wednesday, so that you're prepared, where maybe you think this project isn't so hard and you're going to start working on it on Thursday. But then when you actually dig into it, you realize that it's pretty complex and there's a lot of things that you need to do, and you're going to miss your deadline on Friday. So rather than being complacent with your projects and your assignments, you can start them early, and this will help you as you're practicing the teachings. You'd like to eliminate complacency, but you'd also like to do the same thing as it relates to your work and your assignments and things like this. The Buddha teaches practice of right livelihood. This is part of the Eightfold Path. And he teaches you this because as long as you're practicing wrong livelihood, you would be causing harm in your livelihood, and you're sustaining your life off of causing harm to others. That's what a livelihood is. It's the way that you choose to sustain your life. And he gives you 5 livelihoods that would cause harm, and that if you practiced any of these 5, because you're sustaining your life off of causing harm to others, this harm is going to come back to you. So practice of business in weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. This is all causing harm to other beings. And you can independently verify this. All of his teachings are independently verifiable. You can take these and you can see that, if you sustained your life in this way, it would be causing harm to others. And now this harm is going to come back to you. And you're going to need to sustain your life in a way that you're not causing harm. So these are 5 livelihoods that he teaches. But then he teaches other teachings beyond these are just the types of livelihood that would cause harm. But then he teaches you about scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, pursuing gain with gain. I talked about this on Monday just a little bit. And then he teaches you other things too. If you look at volume 12, chapter 14, you can see where he talks about eliminating craving, anger, and ignorance. If you remember back to Monday where I was teaching you the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires, that if you have craving, anger, and ignorance involved in your livelihood, or your selection of a livelihood, or your conducting of your livelihood, it's going to cause you difficulties in your livelihood. Because if you're having craving, desire, attachment, where you're longing, yearning in your professional life, you're going to get angry and frustrated and bitter. Now your mind's all shaken up, and you're not going to be able to make wise decisions. So you're interested in eliminating your craving, anger, and ignorance as it relates to anything in your professional life. So you'd like to get to a point where you can enthusiastically perform your livelihood, where you have ambition and motivation. If you have a certain livelihood that you despise and you have to drag yourself to work every day, you're not going to be able to have a peaceful and joyful life, right? Because the Buddha is teaching you how to eliminate these pollutions out of your mind so you can get to a peaceful and joyful mental state. And then also because of that, you'll have a peaceful and joyful life. Whatever life you create based on the teachings of the Buddha, you will be practicing the ideal life. You will thoroughly enjoy your life. And as it relates to your livelihood, you can get to a point where you enjoy and you're so enthusiastic about your livelihood that you would do it even if you didn't get paid for it, right? Of course, you need to get paid because you need to sustain your life. You need to buy certain things like food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. But when you get to a right livelihood, you enjoy that work so much that even if you didn't get paid for it, that is something that you would still be willing to do because you just enjoy it that much. So it's not like going to work, right? Like a 4-letter word, like, oh my gosh, I got to go to work, right? If you're dragging yourself to work, you're not in a right livelihood, and you're not going to be able to get to peaceful and joyful life if your livelihood is something that you despise. So you'd ultimately like to get to a point where there's no discontentedness associated with your livelihood. That if you get frustrated and agitated and annoyed at work, this is because there's some cravings, desires, attachments that are in the mind, and you'd like to clear all of this out. So it's the breathing mindfulness meditation, the generosity, and all the other steps on the Eightfold Path that are going to help you do that. But you're going to need to pay attention to this one factor of right livelihood that the Buddha teaches you in order to purify your livelihood so that you can be ambitious and enthusiastic and motivated in your livelihood. These are the kind of basic teachings of right livelihood that the Buddha shares with his own words. I shared this with you on Monday. This is the first part where he's teaching about the 5 livelihoods that will cause harm. And then these are the types of things that you might do in your livelihood that could cause difficulties, like scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. This is what's called the first fold of purification. And there's a second fold of purification. Initially, you would like to at least get up to this point where you're practicing these teachings. You're not practicing business in living beings. You're not practicing business in weapons, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, or poisons. Clarify that, purify your livelihood of that. But then be sure you're not scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. You're going to need to know what each of these are. And if you don't know what they are, you can ask me, or you can look in the book in Volume 1, Chapter 5. I've got it detailed there in all the classes that I've taught. So you'd like to get up to this first level of purification. And then the second fold of purification is in Volume 12, Chapter 14. And this is where the Buddha teaches you to eliminate the pollutions of the mind, those 10 fetters, so that then your livelihood, you can have this enthusiasm, ambition in your livelihood. Okay, so this is the first fold of purification. As you're conducting your livelihood and you're at work, keep in mind that your mind can only do one thing at a time. If people are putting pressure on you to so-called multitask, you're not actually multitasking. Your mind is bouncing around from thing to 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 thing, and you're not practicing singleness of mind. And what you're going to find is at the end of your day, you're very stressed and you have a lot of anxiety, and you find it difficult to just relax. So in situations where people are trying to put pressure on you to multitask, you just know that you just do one thing at a time. And where people are trying to barge into your office, perhaps, and they're trying to, kind of hijack whatever it is that you're doing. Like maybe you're talking on the phone and someone just barges in your office and trying to get your attention. That doesn't mean that you have to stop talking on the phone and address them, right? You can actually practice and make decisions about the way you do things. And then people around you will start learning those things about you, that they can't just barge into your office, because you can't go around and teach every one of your coworkers like, hey, I'm practicing singleness of mind. Please don't come in and barge in on me, and I'm going to just do one thing at a time. This is going around and trying to teach others to do things your way. Instead, you would like to just make decisions that promotes the qualities of mind that you're trying to cultivate, and then people around you will gradually learn that. So I had to do this even in my own home. There were times where I'd be talking on Zoom with a student, and my son would barge into my room, and he would barge in, Dad, I need something from you. And I would just keep talking on the conversation with the student. I wouldn't break from that and start talking to my son, because if I did that, he's going to learn that, hey, I can just barge into Dad's room, and anytime I barge in, he's going to talk to me, right? But instead, I just ignored him, and I just kept talking, right? I didn't tell him anything. I wasn't being rude, right? I just kept talking. He had some craving of something that he wanted. And then after maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes, if he's still standing there, I might say, can you hold on a second? And then I say, yes, son. And he says, oh, Dad, I got an emergency. Really? What is it? The batteries on my remote control car aren't working. I need new batteries. Oh, okay. That's not really emergency, son. I'll take care of that when I get done, right? Or there's some batteries over here, go find those batteries. But then more and more, he started learning that dad's not going to address him. And there were some times where he would come in and I just wouldn't even break from the conversation. I would just keep talking the whole time. And slowly but surely, after like 15 or 20 times of him doing that, he realized that, hey, dad's not going to address me whenever I barge into the room. So now he doesn't come in to the room. And when he has come in, sometimes towards the end of that time, he would just stand there and stand there and stand there and stand there and stand there, and I wouldn't break from the conversation. And then eventually he would just leave. He would just let go. He would realize dad's not going to address him. So you can do this same thing with your coworkers. When they barge into your office, if you're talking on the phone, just keep talking on the phone. If you put down the phone, what you're teaching your coworker is, yes, you barging in has accomplished something good, which is I'm putting down my phone and now I'm going to address you. But if you just keep talking on the phone, then slowly but surely the coworkers around you realize when they peek into your office and you're on the phone, you're not going to break from the phone call to address them. The same thing's true, like if you're writing an email or something like this and someone just barges in and starts talking to you, just keep typing out your email for a little while, wait a few moments, and then actually address them, right? If you break right away, you're teaching people around you like, hey, you barge into my office and just start rattling off a bunch of things, and I'm going to stop what I'm doing and address you. You're reinforcing this conduct. So you can't go around and actively teach people what they should and shouldn't do and how to interact with you, but you are teaching through your actions all the time. Whatever decisions you make, you're teaching people through your actions. So you can make the choice to just keep writing your email or keep talking on the phone and things like this. And then people slowly learn how you interact, and this will allow you to practice singleness of mind, because you're going to need to do just one thing at a time. And if you're typing out the email, you're not interested in having the conversation and typing out your email at the same time, because you're not going to be as clear and concise in your email that way, and you're not going to be as clear in your conversation. So if you're going to have this conversation with somebody who comes in, stop your email, talk to them, address whatever you need to address, and then come back to your email. And same thing when you're typing out an email or something, you're not interested in having a YouTube video playing in the background, because this is your mind having to switch back and forth. You would like to just do one thing at a time. When the Buddha was teaching this, he said, when you're eating, make sure you're eating, essentially. He said, when you're eating, know that you're eating. When you're walking, know that you're walking. When you're sitting, know that you're sitting. When you're talking, know that you're talking. And we can expand that today, because he was talking about singleness of mind there, is when you're writing an email, write your email. When you're talking on the phone, talk on the phone, right? You're not interested in trying to do both of these things at the same time, because your mind's just going to be flipping back and forth, rapidly cycling. And you're not going to be doing either of those things very well, because the mind's having to rapidly cycle. So in terms of bringing forth your right speech and making sure you're not producing any harm in your speech, if you were trying to write an email and have a conversation with your coworker at the same time, you're not going to be able to bring forth all your wisdom to practice right speech. And you're going to stumble, and you might speak in ways that you regret later. So if you stop writing the email and then you address your coworker and talk to them directly, now you can fully bring forth your wisdom to practice right speech and develop harmonious relationships at work. So practicing singleness of mind is really important. And then interacting with just one person at a time. As you're at work, you need to maintain your calmness, that equanimity that we talked about with the Brahma Viharas. When your mind is calm, you'll have awareness of mind or mindfulness. When you have awareness of mind or mindfulness, you have concentration or focus or clarity of mind. And when you have clarity of mind or concentration, you'll be able to access your wisdom and make wise decisions. So wherever you see your mind getting shaken up at work, you would like to cut that off and let it go, using the Eightfold Path, practicing your mindfulness or awareness of mind, and then applying right effort. So if you're in a business meeting, somebody says something and you notice some frustration coming up because it's triggered one of your cravings, you'd like to cut that off and let it go. Train the mind to be calm, because as long as you allow your mind to be uncalm, you're not going to have mindfulness, you're not going to have concentration, you're not going to be able to access your wisdom and make wise decisions. Because as you're making wise decisions at work, it's promoting a better work environment for yourself. And this is where you're going to see that you'll excel in your work environment. You'll get promotions. You'll be able to have other opportunities for different projects that it is that you're interested in working on. But if your mind easily gets shaken up and you're not able to apply your wisdom, people aren't going to be interested in involving you in a certain project that could be very helpful for your career, or they might not be interested in promoting you at work. So by maintaining your calmness and composure at work, you'll ultimately be able to access your wisdom and make wise decisions that helps you advance in the work environment. This is the Eightfold Path that you guys learned on Monday. I went through each one of these steps and showed you how to apply it in your own personal life in order to train your mind. It's organized in wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. And while I showed you how the Buddha taught it and how to apply it in order to get to enlightenment, you can actually use certain lessons from the Eightfold Path in your day-to-day work environment too. Of course, you need to learn it in the way that the Buddha taught it in order to be able to get to enlightenment and train your mind. But there are certain things about the Eightfold Path that you can apply in your work environment. So I'm going to show you that here in a moment. But if you remember what right view is, this is where you're accepting responsibility for your own discontent feelings, understanding that it's craving, desire, attachment that is producing these discontent feelings. You learn the Four Noble Truths, that the problem is discontentedness, the cause of the problem is craving, desire, attachment. The elimination of the problem is to eliminate the craving, desire, attachment, and the path forward is the Eightfold Path. That's what's going to completely eliminate the discontent feelings. Then right intention is to practice the intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, and the intention of harmlessness. Right speech is to practice the elimination of lying, gossip or slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. And then in more detail, it's the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, where you're practicing speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, it's gentle, it's beneficial, and it's with a mind of loving kindness. And then right action is ensuring that you're not causing harm through your bodily actions. And the Buddha taught the 3 primary bodily actions that can cause significant harm, which is killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. But you would like to pay attention to all your bodily actions and make sure you're not causing any harm at all through your bodily actions. Then there's livelihood, which is what we just talked about in terms of that first fold of purification and the second fold of purification, making sure you're not causing harm through your livelihood. Right effort is those 4 right efforts where you're preventing any unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind. You're applying the effort to eliminate any unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. You're applying the effort to bring wholesome qualities into your mind. You're applying effort to support and encourage any wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. Applying the effort, there's 4 aspects to this. Applying the effort to eliminate the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. Then the right mindfulness is practicing awareness of mind, but more specifically, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Being aware of the bodily sensations associated with discontentedness as it arises, then the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects, having awareness of these things. You need to have awareness of the mind, and you cultivate this through right concentration. Right concentration is practicing development of your meditation practice, like breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness, developing that to 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more, and practicing singleness of mind, doing just one thing at a time. So if you notice your mind's wandering, you cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back in the present moment, not just in meditation, but in daily life too. So this is like a little summary of the Eightfold Path, but I went into detail on Monday. But now, understanding that, you can actually apply some of these principles in your work environment. So for example, with right view, where the Buddha teaches you to accept responsibility for your own discontent feelings and how your mind's causing your own discontent feelings, you can accept and acknowledge responsibility for projects and assignments, right? When your boss is assigning you projects, accept responsibility for that and don't kind of try to push it off or brush it off on somebody else. Everything that you experience is a result of your decisions. This is part of right view, is understanding the natural law of Gotama. So whatever is going on at work, this is a result of certain decisions that you're making, and you can improve those decisions as you have wisdom. If there's anything you don't particularly care for that's going on in your life, just cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you'll experience different results, not just in life, but in your work life too. If there's something you don't particularly care for that's going on, just cultivate some wisdom, make different decisions, and you'll experience different results. Then you've got right intention, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Essentially, to practice these teachings at all times to cultivate wholesome relationships in your livelihood. Because if you're practicing right intention, right speech, right action, and right livelihood in your livelihood, you will be able to produce harmonious relationships in your work environment through meetings and through individual conversations and emails and things like this. If you're practicing right speech all the time, you'll see that you'll promote more and more improved relationships in your work environment. So having those moral conduct that the Buddha teaches in your livelihood and practicing it in your day-to-day life, in your professional life, is going to promote harmonious relationships in your work environment. And then with right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, you can cultivate practicing this mental discipline in your livelihood. So if you're in a business meeting and your mind is wandering and thinking about that project that's back on your desk that you're going to have to take care of after the meeting, cut that off, because you got to apply your effort and your energy in this meeting and bring forth your wisdom in that meeting. No sense in thinking about that project that's waiting for you back on your desk. You'll get to that when you get to it. Singleness of mind. Focus on the meeting at hand, right? And then when you're working on your project at your desk, don't be thinking about the next meeting that you're going to be having. Focus on that work project that's right in front of you, right? Or if you're on Tuesday, you're working on something, don't be thinking about this big meeting on Friday that you're going to have with your boss, or, maybe the vice president or the CEO of the company. Focus on that project that you're dealing with on Tuesday that's sitting in front of you. Singleness of mind. So practicing that mental discipline at all times. Okay, so any questions on any of this stuff? This is just a little bit of a primer just to get you thinking about the teachings in your work environment and how you can apply them in your work environment. So let me know what questions you guys have, okay? Whoever would like to go, you guys are welcome to go.
A question about a friend of mine. He is a butcher, and
He's what?
Butcher.
Oh, butcher. Yes.
Butcher.
A butcher.
His father and his grandfather were also in this profession, and he's a very nice and kind person. And I don't want him to get any bad things happen to him. So why this profession is brings unwholesome things to him? Could.
Yeah. So in order to be a butcher, there needs to be killing of animals. And because of the killing of animals, killing of living beings, you're now sustaining your life off of causing harm to other beings. And the thing that can happen for you in these kinds of situations is you can get disease and illness from this kind of thing, because you're killing. Now the result or the consequences is that you're interacting with this meat and bacteria and viruses. This is actually how COVID started, right? There was this wet market apparently in China where people were butchering animals and selling animals, and now COVID jumps over into the human realm, and now it spreads all throughout the world. And if you look at many of the diseases that we experience, they're all coming from the animal realm, whether it's HIV, whether it's bird flu or swine flu or mad cow disease, and you could go on and on and on and on and on. There's all these viruses just waiting for us in the animal realm. And while people invent vaccines and these kinds of things to address a particular issue, it doesn't actually solve the root core problem, which is our interaction with animals and our killing of animals and our sustaining our life off of animals. This is what's actually allowing those viruses to come into the human realm. So as long as we interact with animals like that, we're going to continue to experience disease after disease after disease. And someone who's a butcher, they're like on the front lines of that. And I imagine probably the people that were in that market, they were probably some of the first people that died because we didn't have vaccines and we didn't have remedies at that time. I imagine there was a lot of people in that area that probably were the initial people who died, where later on, as it spread, we got more and more wise about this, and people were further and further away from the problem, and they didn't necessarily die from this illness. Whereas if you sustain your life off of killing other animals, you're likely to die yourself. And this is why the Buddha teaches that it's unwise to sustain our life off of meat. And then we also can see that it's causing harm to our environment. that having the production of animals, it's causing harm to our climate and our environment. And then also when we eat meat, it causes harm and sickness within our own body too. But in terms of a livelihood, that's where it causes harm, is that you can get illness through butchering animals.
He doesn't kill animal, he just sells the meat. So even though he interacts, because he interacts with meat that could cause harm to him because of the bacteria he can get from that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I had a girlfriend when I was 16 years old who ended up dying because she ordered, we went to the mall and she ate at one place and I ate at a different place. And she ended up getting this sandwich that had E. coli bacteria in it. And this was at a restaurant, right? These people didn't even butcher it. Like where your friend is, they were like several layers removed, but those people could have easily gotten that E. coli bacteria as well and died from that as well. So if you're involved in the selling of meat, there's the potential that illness and bacteria can occur, and then you can get infected and actually die from that. So she was a customer, but this person, anywhere in the process of this meat being handled, those people can get illness and disease and end up dying from that. And of course, they take precautions so that it's less likely for those things to occur. But that's why the Buddha is teaching you that it's unwise to be involved in that, because these precautions aren't permanent. It's very easy for someone to leave some meat out accidentally, or a little bit of juice from the meat gets spread on a butcher block that somebody didn't clean up or disinfect, and now it starts infecting other products, even vegetables, as you're chopping vegetables on this chopping block. So these procedures and protocols that we use to try to reduce the chance of illness associated with meat, they're not 100%, because the universal truth of impermanence, it's only a matter of time before someone gets sick and ill and ultimately might end up dying because of these things.
I understand. I am a teacher and I work with elementary students, and they are constantly sneezing, coughing, and bringing bacteria to me. So isn't it similar to the same situation? Like, should I remove from being a teacher because the students bring bacteria constantly?
So the bacteria that we have in the human realm, our bodies have adapted to them, and we have immune systems that can protect us against those things. So that's why you don't die from those bacteria. But the ones from the animal realm, it's a different realm, it's a different species. So now when those bacteria and those viruses are coming in, that's why we're dying, or we're having some kind of significant illness. So in your situation, this body is not going to be permanently healthy. It's not possible. You will get sick. But by you just interacting with human beings, you're not actually causing harm through your teaching. So that's why you don't die from the cold or flu that you get from your children. And that's why you're not producing unwholesome karma in the choice of your livelihood to be a teacher. But as a butcher, you can get this bacteria or virus crossing over from an animal realm where we don't have immune system built up for that. And now you can die from that because you would be killing if you were or involved in that process, even just as a butcher.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to ask a question about singleness of the mind in situations where the senses are overly stimulated. So that would be walking, for example, and even better, riding a scooter as a passenger. Like, how can I maintain singleness of the mind with so many things going on? Should I focus on the breath or on sensory sensation?
Yeah, so if you're riding on a scooter, you're just riding on a scooter. And if you're looking out at the scenery, you're just looking out at the scenery. And of course, there's going to be different things. It's like there's a sign, there's a tree, there's a lamppost, there's whatever, but you're just looking, right? You're not riding on the scooter and thinking about, the things that you're going to be doing tonight. You just ride on the scooter and you just look. And now I'm just looking at the scenery as I'm riding. So that's what it means by doing one thing at a time. It doesn't mean that you're only looking at one thing at a time, because right now I'm looking at this being here, but I can see these beings over here too, but I'm still practicing singleness of mind of just looking at you and just talking to you and answering your question. So you're going to see other things, you're going to hear other things, but you allow your mind to focus on just one thing and doing just one thing. So in that example, it's riding on the scooter, the body is on the scooter, and the mind is just looking at the scenery perhaps. And that's what you're doing as a singleness of mind. But if you notice your mind is wandering and doing other things, that's where you'd like to cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back to the present moment of whatever you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And just following up on Marta's question, like the mind doesn't feel convinced by that butcher thing. What I mean is, I instinctively feel that eating meat and killing animals is not wholesome. I know it. But I also observe, like, most people in the world eat meat, and I can't correlate like those negative. I don't see them getting ill, luckily.
Yeah, there's a lot of research around this now that we can see that people who eat meat, they have significant more illness than someone who doesn't. And they've actually taken large populations of people to be able to study this. One of the studies that you can look at is like around World War II, when Nazi Germany fell. The people were very poor for a period of time, extended period of time, and they didn't really eat much meat during this time because they didn't have the money to afford it. And during that time, sickness went way down in their population. And then after that extended time where they were experiencing the lack of wealth, they started becoming more wealthy again, and they started eating meat, and you can see sickness and illness went up in their population. Same thing right now, present day in China. At one time, Chinese people were eating a lot of vegetables, and now meat consumption is increasing. During the time when they were eating a lot of vegetables, they didn't see much sickness in that population of people, and now that they're starting to eat more meat, they're seeing a lot more sickness. You can also see studies where they've taken like wild salmon out of streams in places like America where it's supposed to be a very clean water, and they've tested the substance of the flesh, and they found like cocaine, antidepressants, and things like this in the flesh. So when you're eating the meat, you're not just eating the flesh, you're eating whatever is in that flesh. And if you're eating meat that's contaminated with antidepressants and cocaine and things like this, that's all affecting the health of your body and the health of your mind. So if you end up deciding on your own, or if you already have purged meat consumption out of your diet, then you'll notice that your mind will become more clear, and you'll notice that you're not as sick in the body. Because if you had, like, say there was like a piece of shrimp, a piece of pork, and a broccoli laying on the counter at your house, and you went away for 24 hours or 48 hours, and you came back, which thing are you going to eat? Are you going to eat the shrimp, the pork, or the broccoli?
The broccoli.
The broccoli, right? Well, when you eat food, because the reason why you would eat the broccoli is because that other stuff was unrefrigerated, right? And it's going to have disease and bacteria that grows inside the shrimp and the pork. Well, when you eat food, if you eat a piece of shrimp, it goes down in your stomach. It's unrefrigerated for this period of time. So that means it's growing bacteria inside your stomach. So this is why you get like diarrhea and you get stomach problems. You know, some people call it food poisoning, where you start vomiting and you start having diarrhea. This is because that pork and that shrimp is in your stomach and it's unrefrigerated. So if you wouldn't eat the pork and the shrimp when it's out on your counter, and you know that that's unhealthy for you to do that, well, it's the same thing when you eat it and it goes down in your stomach. You've done the same exact thing, which is essentially you've consumed this animal flesh that has been unrefrigerated, and now it's unrefrigerated in your stomach. And that's why you get more sick, not only like vomiting and diarrhea, but there's studies that show there's more inflammation in the body and cancers and other things like this. So the more you look at it and you gain the wisdom around this, you'll be able to see it. And then if you ever decide to purge meat from your food supply and you eat plant-based food, you'll see your mind become more clear, and you'll see you become more healthy. You feel more light. You're not as heavy all the time, and you'll notice improvements to your own body. And this is where you can independently verify that this is a true thing, a true teaching.
Yeah, I've been vegetarian for like years on end, so maybe that's why I don't notice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Teacher David.
Mm-hmm.
I understand.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a question to the singleness of mind. because when I'm in Germany in my daily life, in the past I try to listen music, for example, when I'm driving or when I go by the train or something like this, and or listen podcast. But it feels like that I divorce myself from my problems, something like this. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that's why I'm not sure about if I should stay sometimes in the moment, like if I'm going by train or if I am sitting in a cafe or something like this. But it feels like I have the pressure that I sometimes want to develop myself, listen podcast, but I'm not sure if I should like stay in the moment or if I should like try to read something or listen podcast, something like this. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no harm in listening to a podcast or reading, doing one thing at a time. Because if you just sat there and thought about all the difficulties and struggles you had in your life all during your day, your mind would be obsessed and, really burdened with this. So you're going to need a break and listen to some music or read a book or things like this. This is fine. This is helpful for the mind to give it a break, to step back and take in some other content. So there's no harm in that. When we talk about singleness of mind or presence of mind, it doesn't mean you only do whatever's in front of you. Like if you're riding in the train, you just sit there and ride in the train. You can listen to music. You can read a book while you're riding a train. Now, if you're driving the train, you would like to just drive the train, right? You're not interested in reading a book and driving the train. That would be doing two things at one time, and that's dangerous. This is where you can see the truth for yourself, that when people don't practice singleness of mind, it produces unwholesome results for them. There's people that have been talking on the phone, walking down the street, and now they're dead because they walked out in front of a car and whack. Right? Or they were driving their car and text messaging, and now they're dead because, boom, they got into a car accident. And this is where you can see the truth for yourself, that it's unwise to try to do multiple things at one time because your mind can't do that. But in a situation where you're just sitting down and you're reading, you're just reading. You're not driving the train. You're just reading, or you're sitting and listening to music. You're just listening to the music. So your mind's doing just one thing at a time, and you're giving your mind an opportunity to take a break from thinking about all those difficult challenges that you have in life. And then when it's time to reflect on your challenges in life, you set aside the book, you set aside the music, and now you reflect and you think about those things and figure out what you're going to do in your life and what decisions you need to make to improve your life. So when we talk about, I know you didn't ask this part, but I'm going to share this. But when we talk about present moment and we talk about singleness of mind, that doesn't mean that you never think about the past, and that doesn't mean you never think about the future. Because presence of mind or having singleness of mind or having your mind in the present moment means that you're doing one thing at a time. So if you're thinking about your past, about certain decisions you made either wisely or unwisely, and you're using that to cultivate wisdom to help you make decisions in the future, that's a beneficial way to use your time. Or if, say, you're in the present moment and you're thinking about something in the future, be it 1 week from now, 1 month from now, 1 year from now, and you're thinking about how you would like to handle that particular thing, or you're planning that particular thing, you can do those kinds of things. You wouldn't be able to live in life if you only did whatever was in front of you. So like, I guess it was 6 months ago now, the people invited me to go to Mexico and teach in Mexico, and I'm going to be leaving in 2 months. So back then, there was things that we needed to talk about. We needed to plan the future, but we didn't cling to those decisions, right? Whatever decisions we were making, we're not clinging to those. So you can think about the future, you can think about the past, but you're doing it in the present moment, meaning you're in the present moment thinking about the future and then now planning the future and doing certain things and making certain decisions for the future. So I'd like to just add that piece in there so that you guys understand that when we talk about singleness of mind or having your mind in the present moment, it doesn't mean that you only think about what's happening right now, that you can think about the future and plan the future, but you're just not interested in clinging to those decisions because things are going to change. And you can also think about the past, but you're also not interested in clinging to that and forming feelings in the present moment based on things that happened in the past. But these things can be helpful and beneficial for you to plan out and sort out and cultivate wisdom around. Mm-hmm. You have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. So I kind of get what you said about how choosing a livelihood that you do even for free, so that if it's being paid, it's not the money that's causing any conditional happiness or anything. And the follow-up question that I have is, so a lot of you can be a part of a modern, like, capitalist corporation and abide by those rules yourself, but your corporation most likely will not. I mean, especially in America, the corpos are do a lot of shady stuff. So how do you kind of, with that moral quandary a little bit?
So what you do is you make wise decisions about where you choose to work, right? And based on all the information you know about a certain company, you make a decision that you think is wise in that situation. So there was a time where I took a job with an IT company, and there were different companies I worked with at different times, but this one company, it was a newer company. It was a really interesting work environment. They were very good about investing in their employees and training and stuff like this, and it was a great company to work for. But then after about working there for 2.5 years, we found out that the CEO was cooking the books, so to speak. And that was what was driving our stock price up. And then all of a sudden, when the public found out, our stock price dropped off significantly. And people who had all these stock options, we weren't able to cash them in the way that we thought we were going to be able to at one time. So in that situation, people started getting laid off. Well, that was the results of our decisions, that we chose to work for this company, this person that we had no idea that was cooking the book, so to speak. It impacted all of us, and now we had to all go out and find different jobs, right? So if you are in a company, or before you join a company, you would like to investigate it as best as you can, and then make a valid decision, and then realize that there's just going to be certain things that you don't know in some situations. But if you become aware of those things, then you would like to make different decisions. So let's just say I found out about this, and maybe the company wasn't laying employees off. Maybe I would have chosen to leave on my own, because I know it's unwise to work for somebody who's lying and cheating and doing these kinds of things. So that's what you would like to look at, is you like to put some thought into where you're working, because where you choose to work and the people you choose to work with, their decisions are going to impact you. But it's your decision of whether to work for those people or that company or not.
Okay, and one more follow-up question. That makes sense. So I guess the answer is you update your decision and action based on new information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you understand impermanence, things are constantly changing. You can make the best, most valid decision that you know of at that time based on all the information you've collected. But if you get new information, you're not interested in clinging to this decision, because it can lead to unwholesome results for you. So if you ever notice that you get some information, you realize that it's unwise for you to continue to work at that company, you can let go and move on to another company. Whereas if you're holding on to the salary, or you're clinging to the employees, or maybe you're clinging to that corner office that's so beautiful and they got this beautiful view, you're not going to be willing to leave that company. And because of your craving and clinging and holding on to this, now you're going to experience potentially unwholesome results. If you've learned something that could potentially impact you and you continue to work there, now you're going to be affected by that. And based on your decision, based in craving, it's going to produce unwholesome results. So yeah, as in things are changing, you need to update your decisions, because that way you're not clinging to any particular decision and producing unwholesome results based on your craving and clinging.
Okay. And one more question about capitalism, and also specifically America. Especially just being in this course and in Thailand, and looking at how anxious and depressed and lonely and wanting and craving Americans are. I mean, it seems clear to me with this new information that I have that, especially American capitalism is itself a poison. So it seems to me that if you are in a corporation of any kind, you're contributing to that poison in a sense, because you're contributing to the system of creating needs and craving for other people that just compounds this cycle of need and craving that Americans think that they need. So even if you have cleared yourself from that and you don't have that craving and you are happy, you're still even if you're a part of that corporation, you're part of that system and that poison. So I know that the Buddha could not have predicted Fortune 500 hyper-capitalist companies when he was alive, but right now it seems obvious to me that's the case. Maybe you could tell me what you think about that.
Well, the Buddha's teachings apply to these kinds of things too. One of the things that we translate craving, anger, and ignorance to is we call it greed, hatred, and delusion. So at the core of what a lot of people think of capitalism is this unquenchable thirst for craving for more money, more money, more money, more money. So the Buddha explains that. His teachings are timeless. They're universal, that they apply in all times. So even as we come up with Fortune 500 companies, it's still the Buddha's teachings still explain what's happening in that situation, which is the mind's craving more and more and more. The mind thinks that this money is going to somehow satisfy the mind, and somehow I'm going to get happy if I have more money. So while these things are happening in the world, you can choose where you choose to work, right? So at one time, I worked for different corporations and different companies. And then at a certain point in time when I was in America, I decided to leave that and have my own business. And oftentimes people who are making their way to enlightenment, they oftentimes are starting their own businesses if they're going to be in the business world. Because what you realize is that by joining any company, your decision to be involved in this company, there's lots of people who have craving, anger, and ignorance. And as they're making decisions, it's going to impact you. So if you're part of a 5,000 person company, all those decisions of those individual 5,000 people are affecting you in one way or another when you choose to be part of that company. So oftentimes, the more you understand craving, anger, and ignorance, people decide to go off and do their own thing. And this is why you see in Thailand, a lot of people just have their own business. That's why you see all these street stalls. That's why you see all these little independent restaurants. You don't see lots of big mega corporations here. There are some that are here, but you don't see very many of them because Thai people tend to do their own thing because they're interested in being able to make their own decisions, and they know that these decisions that I'm making, it's affecting me. Whereas if I join a big, large company, my decision to join that company, now all these other people who are also making decisions are going to affect me. So you can decide for yourself if you would like to continue to work for companies. I don't know what your work is, or a government organization or these kinds of things. And you can do that and do that in a way that is wise. It doesn't mean everybody that's going to get to enlightenment is going to be an entrepreneur or start their own business. But that's one thing that a lot of people decide to do who making their way to enlightenment, because then they're kind of more in control of their own future. And you're always in control of your own future, but once you join a large group of people like a company, now your choice to be in that company, those people's decisions are going to affect you. And these are things that you need to decide. What are you choosing to do in this world, and what are you willing to accept as potential impact to you? It sounds like you're a little bit familiar with finances and stuff like this, the whole risk and reward scenario that we look at in business. There's a certain risk in joining a large company, and there's a certain reward. And there's a certain risk in having your own business, and there's a certain reward to that. And you need to decide this cause and effect. What is it that I would like to do at any one given time? And it's not that all corporations are bad or all corporations are good, because there's certainly corporations out there that are, more wholesome and more making wise decisions and, all kinds of wonderful things that are socially conscious and things like that. And that's where you get to make the choice. What type of livelihood are you going to have? And if you do decide to join a company, what type of company are you going to join? And that's where, when you understand that your decisions are going to produce some result, you pay really close attention to your decisions, even about which company are you going to join, if you're going to join a company, or are you going to start your own business, and what type of business is it? And that's what the Buddha is bringing to your awareness, is to really think through those decisions. Don't just haphazardly go into the workforce and just try to find the biggest paycheck or the nicest office or the most prestigious title, but instead look at other things that are going to be more helpful for you in order to create this wonderful life for yourself. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Yep.
Yeah, you said plant-based food. If we move from meat to plant-based food, that we can see the results And it seems that when you say that it's easy to notice that, but I didn't notice that, that I feel more light and more healthy. So is it could be a lack of my because of my pollutions I have in the mind, but I don't know, because it's so gradual, slowly process, right? That the body get used to only plant-based food.
Yeah, I think it's been a relatively short time that you've moved to plant-based food, right? In the last 1 or 2 months. Yeah, it took me a good 3 to 6 months to notice the difference. So you haven't been eating it long enough, in my opinion, to be able to notice a significant difference. So I would suggest that you reserve any kind of thoughts on that until it's been about 3 to 6 months. That's where I really noticed the big difference. And the things that I noticed is I noticed that my skin was more clear, my hair was growing faster, my fingernails were growing faster. I noticed my mind was more clear. I noticed that I didn't get as much digestion issues. I noticed that I was able to sleep better. These are all the things. I was getting better quality sleep. I noticed that I didn't have the emotions that I used to once have. Those things all started to subside and started to improve. So those are things that you might notice as well.
Difficult to imagine now because it's so slowly, right? 3 months is a long space.
Mm-hmm.
So if it would come from here to there, okay, one can see, but you say, okay, I will try out.
Yeah, that's what I noticed.
Oh.
See if you notice it too. Mm-hmm.
Hello. I have one question, because in different situations and different contexts, you have mentioned like cut it off and let it go so many times. But I'm thinking, how to practice this skill, because I think this skill is one of the most important and also the most tricky part in meditation. But I guess everyone would agree that it's easier said than done. Yeah, because sometimes you find it hard to let it go because those things are very important to you, or those things are like what you are concerned about, like your mother gets sick or something like that. So I'm thinking if there's any like practice or resources that we can use to help us to get the hang of this skill.
Yeah, oftentimes the mind wants immediate results and immediate benefit, but all of these teachings, it's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. It takes many years to train the mind to be able to let go. There were certain cravings that I had to work on for multiple years before the mind finally let it go. So while we say cut it off and let it go, it's really cut it off and 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 cut it off, cut it off, cut it off. And finally, at some point, the mind's going to let it go. So some of the easier cravings, they can be let go of pretty well or pretty easily, but you need to accumulate enough of the benefits in your meditation and enough of the generosity of practicing it, and then in daily life applying it, where the mind can more easily let things go. Something like your mom being sick or potentially being close to death, that's a really deeply held attachment that you're not going to be able to just let go of through meditation and through practicing generosity and in daily life, cutting off and letting go. So that's why the other day I taught about reflection on death. I don't think you were here during that time. I'm not sure. But there's other techniques that you can use in order to train your mind to eliminate attachment to the people who are closest to you. So an attachment like to your mom, you're not going to be able to just in 3 seconds cut that off and let that go. That's a deeply held attachment that the mind's had for many years, and it's going to take you quite a while to train your mind to let that go. Like I noticed my wife to her son, it took her a good 5 years of me consciously trying to work with her and help her to let this go. And she was doing also some things before that to let it go as well. So it was really more than that. It wasn't until just recently that I could say that her attachment's completely gone, and her son's 11, almost 12 years old. So it takes a long time for the mind to let go of some of these attachments. And that's where the confidence in the Buddha, the teachings, the community, your teacher, and your own ability to get to enlightenment comes in. There's a certain pollution in the mind called doubt, where the mind oftentimes has doubt, but you need to arise this confidence. And that comes through training the mind and seeing the mind improve and the condition of the mind improve gradually over time. But there are techniques, the breathing mindfulness meditation, the generosity, that's going to train your mind to let go. Then there's in the moment, training your mind to cut off and let go. There's the reflection on death, but you need to accumulate enough of this over multiple months and years before the mind will ultimately let go of all of its cravings. It took the Buddha 6 years to be able to train his mind, and that's the Buddha. So it's going to take you some time, but usually within the first couple of days, the first couple of weeks of training, you can see some of the smaller cravings be able to easily be eliminated from the mind, and you can see more peace in your mind from no longer getting angry about that particular thing. And you can notice these little small successes, but there's these larger cravings that are going to take some time, and some of them are going to take multiple years to eliminate. So you need to ensure that you don't have a craving to eliminate craving, right? That you don't have this longing, yearning, and you realize that it's a gradual journey towards training your mind to let go and just chip away at it and get better and better and better, applying all the techniques that you learn during the courses and retreats and so forth and so on. I think your mic's not on yet. It came on and then it might have went back off, the batteries.
Yeah, I have one more question. I think I have this craving for meaning in my life. I'm not sure if it's like a healthy craving, healthy longing or not.
There's no such thing as a healthy craving. Any craving, desire, attachment is going to produce discontentedness, and it's going to pollute the mind. You're not going to be able to have that clarity and that focus. So there's no harm with having an interest to have meaning in your life, right? But when there's a longing, yearning for it, that's where the mind's going to have difficulties and struggles. Oftentimes it's the ego in the mind that's looking for some kind of purpose or some kind of meaning, because at one time in life, when human beings first came to this planet, we were just interested in survival, right? Like we didn't have clothes, we didn't know how to eat, we didn't have fire, we didn't know about shelter. So if you look at prehistoric human beings, they were just interested in survival. They were trying to figure out how to, build caves and rub sticks together and what foods can we eat. They weren't thinking about what's our meaning in life, what's our purpose here. They were just interested in, can I eat this red berry or not, right? That's all they cared about. They were trying to figure those kinds of things out. But as we have evolved, we've become more intelligent. We've become the dominant species on this planet. At one time we weren't the dominant species. There were things that were a lot bigger and badder and larger populations than we were, and we had to be really careful when we went out into the world because we could easily die as human beings. But now we've become this dominant creature on the planet. We've really systematized things like food supplies and developing clothing and shelter, and we've really made things pretty easy for us that we have all this time in our life to do things like search social media and watch YouTube videos and all these other kinds of things, right? And we just have this endless amount of time to just do anything and anything that we would like to do. And that's where we're like, gosh, what's the meaning to life? There's really nothing here. Where back in the past, they were just interested in survival. They weren't, worried about what's our meaning here, what's our purpose here. So what I would say is that the ego is there, this arrogance, this pride, like, gosh, there's got to be some meaning or some purpose to me being here in this world, when in reality, there's really not. There's really nothing here. Sure, we look at the positive side and we try to look at the positive side of life, and that's wise. As an enlightened being, they're going to see the positive side of life. But when you can get more and more in touch with, there's really nothing here that is permanent. There's nothing that's permanently satisfying that your mind can grab onto. This can be motivation to get to enlightenment and realize what your ultimate purpose is to train your mind, get to this peace and joy, get to enlightenment so you can escape this whole coming back into this world of nothing over and over and over again. So by dissolving the ego and arrogance and this pride in the mind, wanting to take some significance in the world, you can actually train your mind to get to enlightenment and then realize that, yeah, there's really nothing here for us to cling to and hold on to. We can let all this go and get to the peace and the joy. And now we won't keep coming back to this world of nothing over and over and over again. And one of the things that can help you to see this is like when you're in an airplane and you're looking down and you see like the cars buzzing around and people walking around going here and there. We look like a bunch of ants, if you ask me. Like if you look at an ant colony, they're just in a line carrying like a leaf to this place or carrying some food to this place. That's essentially what we look like when you're from the sky. It looks like a bunch of ants just running around doing a bunch of menial tasks. And that's essentially what we're doing. We're just running around doing all these menial tasks. But if you can, of course, infuse into that some growth and development and training your mind, then life can become more enjoyable. Where in the unenlightened state, life can sometimes feel quite miserable. But by the time you get to enlightenment, it's like, wow, this is actually quite nice. Like I can actually enjoy this. So if you set aside trying to grab onto some meaning or some purpose and just realize that, okay, let me just cultivate wisdom. Let me train my mind towards this enlightened mental state. And these other things that I'm doing in terms of work, this is just to sustain my life, so that I can have food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. But my ultimate goal, my ultimate objective is to get to enlightenment so that I can have this peace and joy. And then you just build everything around that, hey, I'm doing this livelihood in order to sustain my life, to give me more time to actually get to enlightenment. Or, hey, I'm having these relationships with friends because it's enjoyable to have harmonious relationships and have satisfying relationships. Or, hey, I'm doing this hobby or activity because it's a fun thing to do, but trying to find this like overall meaning and purpose and like, what's my purpose? Well, the truth of the reality is you're just one ant out of many ants, right? We don't have any purpose here. We're just, we're just carrying things from one place to the next. And the more you see that, the more you can get rid of any kind of ego that might be in there looking for a purpose. And then just enjoy your life and build this wonderful life for yourself and just be the best ant you can be.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I see that it's important to reflect about your progress in the path to enlightenment, but how often you reflect on, hey, how much did I practice generosity today? In what way? Hey, I got angry, or I felt discontentedness in this situation. Why? How much time should I reflect on those things? Does it have to be daily, or what's your recommendation?
Yeah, I used to do those things daily. I would look inward and figure out, each conversation, how did that go? Is there anything for me to learn there? Even if the conversation went extremely well, I would look at it and be like, hey, why did it go so well? And then I would learn some wisdom. Or if it didn't go well, I would look at that and figure out why didn't it go well, comparing it to the teachings of the Buddha. When your mind gets to that first jhana, that preliminary phase that the mind moves into, there's what's called thinking and pondering. The Buddha talks about this, where in the past, we might have just plowed through life and just done things whatever way we thought based on what we were doing, not really thinking, just going through life. Where once you learn enough of these teachings and your mind's absorbed enough of these teachings and you get to that first jhana, you start doing this thinking and pondering, where anything that you're about to do in the world, you start comparing it and contrasting it to the teachings, and you decide, how would I like to do this thing? And this is a period of time for maybe a year or two where your mind's almost in some cases obsessively thinking about the teachings and trying to figure out should I do this thing. Like maybe your son's meeting some kind of issue and you're like, in the past you might just barge into his room and start talking to him, where now you might be like, I need to talk to my son. How should I do this? What would be the best way to do this? I really would like to help him understand this, but I need to do this in a warm, loving way, in a kind way. You start thinking about this, right? Before you actually have the conversation. And now you actually start having the conversation. And while you're having the conversation, you're kind of evaluating, am I speaking in the best way? And then after the conversation, you're also reflecting on it. So you go through this period of time where you're thinking and pondering, and this is helping you to build your wisdom. And this is daily that you do this. And ultimately, when you build enough wisdom, that thinking and pondering subsides, because now you have the wisdom to just do it, and you've built enough wisdom to be just functioning. And the way I describe this is like an old computer system. If your old computer system is on like unenlightened 1.0, you're trying to upgrade your operating system to get to this enlightened 9.0. And you're going to go through these incremental upgrades. And when you first start upgrading your computer, the new operating system, it's like, wow, this is so hard. It's kind of challenging. It's like, where did they put the settings? Where did they put this? Where did they put this? And you're trying to figure this out. But after about 2 or 3 weeks on your new operating system of your computer, you're like, wow, this is so much easier. I like this so much better. Like, why didn't they do this from the beginning? This was so much easier, right? And now you're fluidly able to use that new operating system. And it's the same thing with the mind being enlightened, is that you're upgrading your mind to this new operating system. And it feels a bit cumbersome. It feels a bit weird. You're doing this thinking and pondering for an extended period of time. But once you get up and running on this new operating system, everything's effortless because your mind's now operating on this new operating system. So you're going to need to do this daily. Think and ponder and figure out how you should do any one particular thing. And where you're struggling, you can reach out for help from somebody that can help you. You can reach out to me or any member of the community to get help. And now more and more your mind gets upgraded and it'll be effortless for you.
Thank you.
Yep. Frank?
So in theory, I mean, in general, I do understand, and I understand and agree with the idea of having like a singleness of mind, right? It makes sense. But practically, and in reality at times, you know, when you're in an office and there's a certain energy about the place where everyone's go, 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 right? That I think it's very easy to kind of fall into a pattern of just, you know, kind of being anxious and not fully present, wise, and intentional. And I feel that after a while,
The microphone goes out.
and then I feel that after a while, it could be almost like this ongoing general anxiety kind of way of being, right? And so of course, you know, we know that, you know, of course we got to notice it and do our best to cut it off or redirect, right? But what if that doesn't necessarily work, right? What if we're not as skillful at cutting it off right away because, you know, we've kind of been practicing it for years in a corporate environment, and then the way of redirection at times doesn't really fix the problem. It kind of, you know, hits the pause button until you get back to work or until you get back to your desk, right? So for me, it's almost like my wish here. It's like, is there a quick way to just like short circuit it, you know, and break the, you know, and just to break the anxiety in that moment to be able to think clearly, take a step back, right? And, kind of get back online mentally. And also if you can share examples of people that you've worked with who have been able to, you know, do that, that would be awesome.
So it's not going to work right away because it's gradual training, gradual practice, gradual progress. And it's only now that we have these kinds of questions. If you look back at the teachings of the Buddha, you won't see any of his students asking these kinds of questions. And not that you're asking a question that's unwise or anything like that, but you know, 22,500 years ago, they weren't thinking fast and quick. right? Like this is modern society. We want things fast and quick. I got a headache. Let me take that medicine, and 15 minutes later, the headache should be gone, right? We want it fast. We want it quick. Now. That's the way that our society has become. Computers are getting constantly faster. Phones are getting constantly faster. Technology is getting better and better. We don't do the rotary dial phones anymore. We just press a button and boom, it calls for us. All those things are part of our modern society because we want things fast and quick. But you got to remind yourself that this mind that is in this being right now, that is part of this being right now, this isn't the first time that this mind has existed, right? That there's been multiple existences. And for countless years, this mind has been untrained and undisciplined. And you're not going to be able to just revert that training in a matter of minutes or a matter of weeks or a matter of months. It's going to take gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. Even now, you're 45 years old. This mind has been doing this for all these years. And it was doing it before these years too, and all these other existences. So let's just say it takes you the next 10, 15 years to get to enlightenment. I don't know that it's going to take you that long, but let's just say it does. That's a blink of an eye compared to how long this being has constantly been in existence over and over and over again. But even if it takes you 10 or 15 years, by the time you get to enlightenment, you're not going to care. Your mind's going to be so peaceful and so joyful. If it took you 10 or 15 years, so what? That was the best 10 or 15 years you ever spent, because now you've got something wonderful and magnificent, which is this peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. So any kind of interest in doing something quick or immediate, you got to let that go. That's just the mind craving and wanting it right now, right? Instead, understand that there's this gradual training, gradual practice, gradual progress. You got to be dedicated to consistent meditation 2 to 3 times a day. Build that up to 30 minutes or more. You need to consistently be practicing generosity each day. You need to be actively practicing the Eightfold Path, cutting it off. And sometimes your mind's going to dwell in that anxiety or that stress, as you say. Sometimes it's going to dwell. And let that be a reminder to you to stay consistent and stay dedicated, because you don't like feeling anxiety for 3 hours, or you don't like being angry for 2 days. You don't like that feeling, and use that as motivation to continue to stay consistent, dedicated, determined, and diligent in your practice. And what you're going to see is gradually over time, these feelings will gradually diminish, gradually shrink down, where you'll have less and less frequency of these discontent experiences and less intensity each time that you have them. And that'll be confirmation to you that you're headed in the right direction, but you're not going to be able to completely stamp it out until you're actually enlightened. Even in the 3rd stage of enlightenment, you're going to go 3 months, 6 months where you don't have any discontentedness, and then boom, some discontentedness is going to come in. But it's not going to be significant. It's not going to be strong. It's going to be maybe 30 seconds or a minute or two here and there where you feel a little bit icky, and you can stomp that out. By that point, your mind's really well trained. But even up to the 3rd stage of enlightenment, you're going to still experience a little bit of discontentedness here and there. So you're going to need to just be patient with it and know that there needs to be this gradual, consistent training. It's not going to be instantaneous, because this mind didn't get in this condition in 5 minutes. So it's going to take more than 5 minutes to alleviate it and eliminate it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. The mind always wants it now. Give it to me now. And I think I've shared this in this course before, is that one of the biggest challenges I think on this path is that the more you learn, you'll intellectually know what you need to do and what you should be doing, but the mind just won't do it. And sometimes that can produce frustration because there's a craving in there, like, oh my goodness, I know I'm supposed to be cutting this off and letting it go, but it just won't go. It's still there. Oh my God, I'm cutting it off. It's still there. I can't let it go. And this is like a craving where the mind becomes discontent because it's discontent, right? Like if you have this craving to get rid of this discontentedness immediately, when you become discontent, you'll be discontent because you're discontent, and you're just like stacking it on top of each other, right? So the more you strip away these cravings, the more peaceful the mind can become. And one of the cravings you need to let go of is wanting it right now, right? The craving for enlightenment, you got to let that go. Just consistently work towards it. Yep. All right, I think that's all the questions on this one. Let me check online, see if we have any questions online. Okay, I
Da-
don't
David,
see any
I have
questions.
one
Oh
more
yeah,
question. Sorry.
Alberto.
Okay. I have some questions regarding the workplace, work in the academia, university professor. There are expectations on the students always. So sometimes I notice like I have some cravings, some expectations, some of discontent that I find in my job, which is my own craving, is that I want absolutely every student to love my class. And it's part of my ego, like, oh, Alberto's class is amazing. Alberto's a great professor. This is so valuable in my career. I love my major, blah, blah, blah. So sometimes when students they don't have perfect attendance, they don't come to my class, or they don't show assignment, I notice this is a sort of discontent for me. So, which is self-view, my ego, I have to work on that. But then I know then about the strategies, as for instance, about attendance. Like, I like your approach in your teachings, like, students are responsible for their own learning. They can come and go as they need, and you're here to help. But that conflicts with requirements set by the schools about attendance, grading, and or other expectations about the learning progress as part of the majors. So how to find the balance, whether to make students more responsible, work on your own. I can work on my cravings about it's okay if someone doesn't like my class. And they don't love what I do, but it's in the academia with all these standards that are over right there. So I don't know how to find the balance. What would you say about this?
So if I was a college professor, I would have a very clear syllabus from day one, which you might have. Make sure your syllabus is very clear about what you're going to be teaching, when you're going to be teaching it, and even include in their attendance policies and things like this of what's needed in order to perform well, because you would like your students to know, what does it take to perform well in this course? Here it is on the syllabus, right? And now the first day of class, here's the syllabus. Let's go through it. Any questions? And then essentially from that point forward, you're making yourself available based on the wisdom that you have about whatever topics that you teach. You're making yourself available, and whoever chooses to come to the class and whoever chooses to participate in that environment, then they're going to experience the results of their decisions, because you can't control your students and whether or not they choose to come to class or not. You can't control whether they open their books at home and whether they study or not. But all you can do is lay out, hey, this is the course. This is what it takes to be successful in this course. And now I'm going to make myself available for the next 3 months or however long the semester is. I'm going to make myself available during this period of time, and I'm here to be able to help you learn and grow and understand this. But you are responsible for your own education. Oftentimes, we don't see that in the education world, that, teachers are supposed to put pressure on their students to do this thing or that thing. But when you relieve that and you just say, hey, this is the course syllabus, this is what it takes to perform well here, I'm making myself available, and you're responsible for your own education, and you're going to receive a grade at the end of this semester based on your performance in this course. And I'm sharing with you everything you need to do in order to be successful, but it's up to you to make the decisions to be successful. And I'm just going to grade at the end of the semester whether you've performed well or not. And there's no emotions involved in it. There's no, there's none of that. It's just, hey, this is what you need to do. And if you do those things, then you're going to get an excellent grade. And I'm here to support and encourage you to get that excellent grade, but you've got to do the work in order to accomplish that. So if you can have that little discussion at the beginning of your courses, it kind of sets the frame of reference with the student's mind that, hey, I'm not here to badger you. I'm not here to force you. I'm not here to control you. Whether you get a good grade at the end of this course or a bad grade is completely based on your decision making. It has nothing to do with me. It's all about your decision making. And if you make wise decisions, you're going to experience a good result.
Okay. I think I'm going to do that. I cannot do that, but I notice that I make an expectation. I expect you to have your own control of your own learning, kind of the way I want you to have control of your own learning.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to change the wording.
I think I'm going to try that now in August when I start, have this conversation and this tone and from this approach. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the way that you are learning now and you're shifting with your child, like you're starting to parent your child a little bit differently. you'll notice that will transfer over into your career, because your students are essentially about the age of your son.
Yes.
And however you parent your son, that's how you're going to probably conduct yourself in your profession as well. So the more you get used to not putting your expectations on your son, allowing him to make his own decisions, letting him experience his consequences, you'll feel more and more comfortable doing that with your students as well.
He's actually starting now in my university. Now he's going to be a student too. In my
Yeah, so not forcing or controlling or putting your expectations on the students, but just saying, hey, my interest is for you to be wildly successful. There's 30 students right here, and if we have 30 A's at the end of this semester, wonderful. But the only thing that's going to allow that to happen is your decision making, putting it in their hands. I don't know if you've ever been in any of the foundational courses where I kind of talk a little bit about that for like 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of the course, where I let students know that they're responsible for their own learning and their own education. I'm here to support them and help them and guide them, but each student needs to do the work to learn and grow and develop.
And if they don't do it, I just remove any emotion. It's not.
Yeah, there's no emotion involved. It's just, hey, I'm making myself available to help you learn. Whether you choose to learn or not is your decision.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay, so that looks like it's all the questions from online and here. This next topic that I have to share with you, it'll literally take me about 5 or 10 minutes to teach it to you. We could take a break here if you guys like, or I can just keep teaching and be done with it, and then we'll actually be done with the whole day if you guys like, in the whole course. Keep going? You guys good? Okay, so let me teach you guys this next topic, which is the art of the friendly no, how to say no without saying no. As I've shared earlier, the reason why this is so important is that you're going to be in relationships where people are going to ask things of you, and when you use the word no, their unenlightened mind and their lack of wisdom can potentially experience painful feelings because they don't like that. They have a craving for something from you. And now when you say no, their mind experiences those painful feelings. And because of their lack of wisdom of the Four Noble Truths, they're going to associate those painful feelings with you. And what you'll find is they might push you aside because of their aversion. And you end up with a broken relationship just because you said the word no. Or you might notice they become bitter and harsh and hostile. Or they might start putting their expectations on you and try to control you. Right? So there's this art of the friendly no, of how to say no without saying no. The problem is that the unenlightened mind typically doesn't like hearing the word no, and also other variations of this, like can't, don't, won't, right? So if you notice that you don't hear me use these words, you'll never hear me really use these words at all. The solution is that it's best not to use these words and find alternative ways to communicate. So for example, let's just say I'm in the work environment and one of my colleagues is having a housewarming party, and they say, hey, David, I would like to invite you over to our housewarming party, inviting all the other coworkers, and it'd be great to have you come to our party. If in my mind I know that I'm not going to go, I'm not going to say, no, I can't come. I have another obligation, right? Because, whoa, they're inviting me to this party. They hear that no, and now they experience those painful feelings, right? And this can cause difficulties in your relationships. And remember, this course is titled Harmony in Relationships. You're looking to produce harmony. So even though you know that you haven't caused any harm by saying the word no, right? You haven't caused any harm. But if you understand the unenlightened mind and you understand the natural laws of existence, you'll come to understand that it's unwise to say this. So what I'm going to say instead is something along these lines is, hey, thank you so much for the invite. I really appreciate that you've thought about me and including me in this party. I'm going to need to think about this. And if I can come, I will let you know. Right? If I can come, I will let you know. Right? I haven't said no. I just said, if I can come, I will let you know. And on the front side, I've shared with them that I appreciate your kindness. I appreciate you thinking about me. I appreciate, this kind of thing, because that's what they're doing, is they're practicing generosity. And you would like to acknowledge that and say, hey, I really appreciate that. Thank you for the invitation. So you'd like to say no without saying no. And you're not interested in lying. Right? So you can come up with different versions and different phrases like this that will help you, right? You're not lying. You're not doing anything like that. You're just saying, hey, if I can come, I will let you know, right? Whereas if you say no, hard stop, end of sentence, you're going to see that people are going to have difficulties with this. One time, one of my good friends, I graduated the year before him from college, and I had a condo, I had a job, I was making a little bit of money. He was a senior. He came and said, hey, I'm having difficulties paying my tuition. I need some money. Can you let me borrow some money? And I think he was asking for like $300 or $500. And that was a lot of money for me at that time. And I asked him, I said, what did you do last night? Because this was like a Sunday night. I said, what did you do last night? He's like, oh, me and my friends went out. We were partying. We had a good time. We went to the bar, blah, 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 blah. I said, how many drinks did you have? He's like, oh, probably about 12 drinks, da, 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 da. And I said, well, why didn't you use that money for your tuition? Why are you asking me for money? I can't give it to you, because if you don't pay your bills, you're going to go home and live with your parents, and you'll just eat with your parents and live with your parents, and you have shelter with your parents. If I don't pay my bills, I don't have anyone to go home to, because I'm not going back to my mom's house or my family's house. I'm going to be out on the street. So this is what I said to him at the time, and it was the wrong thing to say. I didn't see that guy afterwards, and he was a really good friend, right? I never heard from him. He never called, never saw him, because he was hurt that here it was his good friend. He was asking for money. He had a certain craving and expectation that he was going to get this money, and I didn't give it to him. So I didn't handle that situation well, right? And there were other situations like this in my life too. And I saw that by using the word no or can't or don't, whether it's an invitation to a party or money that someone's needing to borrow, if you say no or you try to justify why you can't do something, this other person isn't going to understand your thinking, because in that situation, they're having a craving potentially. There's a good chance that they're having a craving. They're really wanting you to come to their party, or they're really wanting to get that money from you or some other thing. And if you say no, it's going to tend to produce wholesome or discontent feelings, painful feelings in their mind. And of course, they don't know it's their craving. So one of the things that the Buddhist teachings are guiding you to understand is, yes, it's guiding you to train your mind, but it's also guiding you to navigate the world of all these unenlightened beings that you're going to encounter. Because while you understand the Four Noble Truths and you're not causing any harm by just saying, no, I can't come to your party, you're not causing any harm, you're going to see that people are going to end relationships with you when you do these kinds of things. So I'm not telling you what you have to do or what you are required to do, because you make your own choices. But my advice to you and my guidance to you is to learn how to say no without saying no, where you say different phrases like what I shared, and you're going to need to come up with different ones in different situations where you're not saying, no, I can't do that. Unless it's like someone's like, hey, do you want to go snort some cocaine? You might say, no, I can't do that, right? You're not probably going to say, well, let me think about it, and I'll let you know, right? Because no, I'm not going to go snort cocaine. That's not something I do. So I'll open up the questions. This is all that I really have to teach you, which is a simple thing. And then usually what students will do is they'll kind of role play these things with me, and they'll kind of like have some questions and, try to discuss it. So if you guys would like to discuss it, we can do that. So go ahead, Frank.
So, I'm having difficulty with this because it just seems kind of like if I can be frank, a like kind of wishy-washy answer, right? So, if a friend said, "Hey, Frank, I'm having a party. I would love for you to come." For me, I've actually said this to friends, like, "I am busy that evening. Thank you so much for the invite. I totally appreciate it. If anything changes, I'll let you know." Right? Mm-hmm. I feel that if I were to say,
yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer.
But like if you know that you just don't want to go and you definitely are not going to go, right? It just seems like kind of like a soft, maybe confusing answer of, saying like, "Thank you so much. I'll let you know if I want to come." Meanwhile, in your head, you're like, "There's no way I'm going." Isn't that kind of slightly untruthful? And doesn't it kind of train them to not be okay with just, a direct answer?
You're not saying, "I'll let you know or whatever you just said at the end there. You're not saying that. You're essentially leaving the door open that potentially that you might come, right? So one way to say this is you're letting them down easily, right? Because if you just drop them on the ground, they're going to have painful feelings potentially, and now they're going to push you aside. And you could say, no, I'm not coming to your party. If that's what you'd like to do, say it. But you're going to see that you're going to have broken relationships. Relationships are going to end because of this.
To your earlier example about your friend wanting to borrow money and, maybe it was harsh calling him out on, hey, what are you doing wasting your money when you ask, but then, isn't that a way of, kind of speaking your truth, being direct and honest, and in a way curating your friends? Right. If someone is being unwise with perhaps their money and drinking, right? By you being more direct and honest, isn't that a way of kind of, having your authentic person out, being out there so that people can kind of choose whether or not they want to stick around? Yeah.
What you're going to find is the more relationships that you have in the world, the more successful you're going to be in life, in your personal and professional life. So the more healthy relationships you have in the world, the better for you. So there's no reason just because someone's asking to borrow money to end a relationship, right? Like you can speak in ways that allows this relationship to continue to exist because now it's good for you, it's good for them that you have harmonious relationships. So all you need to do is look at modification of the way you speak, although it sounds like you're already speaking this way, modification of the way you might speak. Instead of saying no or don't or I can't do that or I won't do that, you can just soften up your language, make it a little bit more gentle, and now you can have more harmonious relationships in your life. And this is going to bode well for you and for them. Ultimately, if they have other expectations and other cravings and they get angry and they push you aside because of those things, okay, so be it. But where you can root this out and you can improve your conduct in the way that you make decisions around your speech to allow the opportunity for more relationships to exist in your life, this is very helpful for you. So while we can look at our speech and say, saying the word no, there isn't inherently anything harmful in that word, we can see that, hey, if we change that a little bit, it makes our speech that much better. And it allows us to navigate the world more readily. Whether you choose to do it or not, it's up to you. It sounds like you're already doing it, actually.
Thank you. Cool.
I'm curious about the right answer that what would be the right answer to your friend, knowing that he's been unwise with his money?
Yeah, so if I had to do that whole scenario over again, and he's asking me all these things, he's asking for money, I would say, oh, I understand, that you need some money, and I appreciate that you think of me as a close friend and you're even willing to ask me for money. That means a lot to me. I'm going to need to look at my finances because I have a lot of things that I need to pay for as well. And if I'm able to allow you to borrow that money, I would let you know. And then, of course, if they have craving there, they're probably going to say, well, I really need that money. Can you look right now? Is there a way you can give me an answer in the next 3 minutes? If they have craving, they're going to try to push you, right? And I'm like, that's where you need to continue to be skillful with your speech. And I would probably say, well, this is something that I'm going to need to take some more time to look at. I'm not going to be able to look at it right now, but surely if I'm able to allow you to borrow that money, I will definitely let you borrow it. And by the way, have you considered talking to anyone else, or am I the first person you've talked to? Right? Because I'm going to try to move them on, right? Because their mind is holding on to me and they're thinking like, oh, this is the guy that's going to give me money. And I'm going to try to help their mind to let go. So I'm going to ask them a question to try to help move them along to the next person. Are there other people that you could potentially ask this money from? Because it's going to take me some time to kind of look into this and figure out if it's possible or not. And this is the way I would have handled it if it was now, right? If somebody was doing that now. Mm-hmm. Okay, you guys understand? All right, so you guys can practice these. Yep.
So if he wants a yeah, if he's more asking you, oh, can you say yes or no? Okay, then if you say, can you say yes or no? I say no. Then it's okay, I think, right? But
If somebody kept pushing me, I wouldn't say yes or no. I would keep reiterating the same thing and just saying it a little bit differently until their mind let go, right? Because as soon as I give them the no, that's where their painful feelings are going to come in, and then they're going to push you aside. So I'm just going to reiterate the same thing because their mind's just still holding on. They keep asking and asking and asking and asking and asking. So you need to be able to be skillful and patient and helping their mind to let go.
for
Each
example,
situation is going to be different, right? You're going to need to be skillful in each one of these situations and think through your conversation.
for example, someone has a party and says, "Hey, can you? It would be you want to come? I have a list with people who sit together, so would like to know if you can come." And I say, "Yeah, I'll let you know." So he needs a sign, or he needs a.
Yeah, so what I would share in that situation, I'll say, I'm not sure at this moment whether I'm absolutely going to be able to come or not. If you need to make reservations and where people are sitting, go ahead and do that and don't include me. And I'm going to think about this. And if I'm able to come, I will let you know. And if I come back and you're not able to include me in the party because you've already made reservations, I'll understand. And you don't need to include me in the party. But for right now, if you need to go forward with your planning, go ahead and do it without me. And then if something comes up and I'm able to make it, I will let you know.
Okay. So the next 3 birthdays or next 3 parties, maybe in a shorter time, I say this and then I'm not coming, then he will think like, okay, if he says that, like he's not coming.
Okay.
So why he can't? I would think like.
Your mic went out, but yeah. So if I was you, I wouldn't overanalyze it right now with all the different scenarios. That's what your mind typically does whenever we talk about these kinds of things. Understand what I'm teaching you and then apply it and then work with it, be skillful with it, and then see how it goes for you. You'll see for yourself that if you say no, can't, you're going to end relationships. And if that's what you're comfortable with and that's what you'd like to do, by all means, do those things. But if you'd like to create a lot of relationships in your life where you can live harmoniously with all beings, this is one of the skills that will really help you to do that. Because you'll notice in a professional environment, if people are inviting you to things, like if you don't go to a baby shower or you don't go to a certain party, people will push you aside, right? But then also, if you don't want to go and you actually go, you'll feel grumpy and irritable and miserable there, because sometimes that's what people do when people are having office events and stuff like that. Sometimes people just go because they feel obligated to go, and if they don't go, that the person's feelings are going to get hurt. And now when you go, you feel irritable and miserable and grumpy, and now you become unskillful, and now you damage relationships. So it's better to just do this, which is kind of like what I'm describing as the middle of the road. Right? It's the middle way that you can let this person down easily and allow their mind to not hold on and cling to you, that I can only have fun if David comes to my party.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it also, I do this actually sometimes, trying not to say no. It seems sometimes, I think you said it, a bit, saying not the truth, going around the truth, like a bit like,
telling the truth doesn't mean you say everything you know. You need to understand that being honest and truthful doesn't mean you divulge everything that you know. Right? Now, if you're in a court of law or you're talking to a police officer, I encourage you to tell them everything you know. Right? But in a situation where you're in a personal relationship, being truthful doesn't mean you say everything you know, right? Like, say, the people oftentimes ask this is like, say you're at your door. Let's just say, I know this is a really weird example and it probably will never happen, but let's just say there's a murderer chasing somebody and trying to murder this person, and this person runs into your house and is hiding under your bed, and the murderer shows up at your door and says, "Where's Susie?" You're not going to say, "Oh, Susie's under my bed, go ahead." Like, that's not telling the truth. I mean, that is telling the truth, but you don't need to tell someone everything you know, right? So in that situation, I'm going to say, "Oh, you're looking for Susie? Have you been able to find her?" I'm going to start asking questions. No, I haven't been able to find her. Did she come into your house? Why don't we look outside? Why don't we go outside and look for her outside? Right? And I'm going to like redirect his mind somewhere else. I don't have to divulge the fact that Susie's under my bed. I can be truthful in this situation, in this scenario. So the same thing is true like when someone's inviting you to a party. If you know that you're not going, telling the truth doesn't need to involve that you say, no, I'm not coming to your party. You can still be honest and truthful without saying that. So telling the truth and being honest and trustworthy doesn't mean you tell the people everything that you know. And I realize that you may not be practicing what I'm sharing with you right now, but I'm giving you some guidance of what you could be practicing that's going to help produce more harmonious relationships. It's different than what you're doing right now. I understand that potentially. It might be different than what you're doing. So give it a try and see how it works. And then you'll be able to confirm whether what I'm teaching you is the truth or not.
I just think that in some situations, I would use these phrases to go around things, maybe with some siblings or whatever. You're not. They want a lot of you from you, but you have a time where you don't want because maybe developing mindfulness and whatever, and you need more time for yourself. And then always using these phrases, they have to think like, okay, always if he's saying that, interested. Yeah. So,
well, you're probably not always going to be using this, right? In some cases, you're going to say, "Oh, yeah, absolutely, I can come to your party. That sounds like a great time. Let's go."
Yeah, but I said maybe there's a time where I need my time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for a month.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Then, yeah.
Okay. So if they're having a party every month and you're using this phrase every month, then okay.
Or being at the house of my father and my stepmother asked me every day, "Hey, you want to go out to the forest?" Because she often does that, and was in the last time I wasn't really interested.
So you can say, "Mom, Dad, I've got some other things that I need to do, but you guys go have a good time and enjoy." So I still said, "I'm not coming to your journey in the forest," but I didn't use the word no. Right? Mom, Dad, that sounds like a great time. I'm not going to be able to come today, but go enjoy your walk in the forest.
Okay. So, and just about...
I just didn't say the word no.
Okay. And about the, I think you said don't, also use not don't, but some, for example, you don't know something, then you say, "Oh, I don't know."
Yeah.
It's a difference, right?
So you're taking this to the letter of the law of black and white. You're taking it as never say the word don't, right? That's not what I'm saying, right? That would be permanence. What I'm sharing with you is that when someone's inviting you to something or they're asking something from you, if you use these negative words, their mind with craving, it's going to produce painful feelings. And what I'm suggesting to you that you could pursue if you like, and you'd like to practice and you'd like to see the results, is I'm sharing with you that it would be unwise to use these words because that person's craving, hearing these words, are going to experience those painful feelings. Whether you choose to use it or not, it's up to you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what I'm going to do is end our class here and end the entire course here by thanking you guys for coming. Thank you for joining over the last 5 days. Thank you for any generosity that you've been practicing with me. I know some of you guys have purchased me food or other things like this, and I'd like to thank you for helping me to sustain my life. Thank you for helping me to be able to pay for electric and water and things like this to host these teachings. Thank you for the people online to join as well, because these teachings of the Buddha, they're absolutely going to help you in your life as you learn them and understand them and practice them. You're going to see that your life's becoming more peaceful and more joyful. You're going to have more harmony in your relationships. And when you guys are supporting me to help me, I really appreciate your support because it allows me to not only help you, but countless other people in the world too. So thank you for your generosity and anything you've done to take out the trash or sweep the floor or anything you've done to contribute to what I'm doing here. So thank you for that. And as you guys would like to learn more, there's additional things that you guys can learn in terms of continued support, you can continue to get guidance along the journey because I have books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, quizzes that you can access from our website. You can get in-person and online classes, courses, and retreats at no cost. There's these regular ongoing programs that I share, like the group learning program, the Pali Canon English study group. These are great programs for you guys. You can even have personal discussions, either in person or online, to be able to take the teachings from classes and put them into your personal life. You're going to need that personal guidance from time to time. And then there's a Facebook group that we have where you can ask questions in there and I'll be able to help you. The way the Facebook group is set up is other people aren't teaching you, that if you post a question, then I'm the only one who answers it. Other people might ask follow-up questions, just like here in a class. It's kind of like an online classroom. So there's all these opportunities for you to learn and grow and develop, and it's all available at no cost. There's never a cost associated with anything that I do. Even when I travel and go to places like Mexico, I don't agree to those events unless the person is making it available at no cost. So even when I travel, if you see me anywhere in the world, anytime I'm teaching, you're able to come at no cost. So you're always welcome to digest any of the content I share, whether it's books or audiobooks or any of this other stuff. It's all available at no cost. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for coming to learn and spend time sitting on the floor and doing all the things that you do to be able to come here. Thank you guys online for logging in and all that good stuff. And now what I'm going to do is give you guys an opportunity to potentially use the art of the friendly no, how to say no without saying no. If you guys would like to go have a group lunch after class, you're more than welcome to come if you'd like. Sometimes students like to do that. Perhaps you would like to use the art of the friendly no, how to say no without saying no, or perhaps you would like to come and enjoy. I can make some suggestions. There's a restaurant here in town called Blue Diamond, which has a big, thick menu. It has meat dishes, it has vegetarian dishes, it has vegan dishes. If you'd like to go there, they have like a little garden setting where we can kind of sit in the garden and have some food if you'd like to go there. If you guys would like to go somewhere farther, there's a place outside the city called Huatang Tao. It's like a reservoir in a park. It's a national park where you sit in a bamboo hut and we can sit around on the reservoir on the lake, and food is brought to us, and they have really good food to be able to sit and eat and enjoy the weather. It's like a nature park where you can walk and swim, and they have zip lining and boats and things like this to enjoy. So there's all these different options. Maybe after we finish class, we can all talk, and if you guys would like to go do something, there's other options besides these two. Maybe one of you guys have an option that you would like to contribute, but if you'd like to go out and spend some time together as a class, we can do that. And I apologize for those of you guys online that we're not going to be able to include you in that because the technology hasn't advanced to that level yet, but someday if technology advances to that level, you're surely welcome to join us. So again, thank you guys for joining, and anytime you guys would like to learn, just let me know. I'm here to help you. Okay, so have a lovely day, whatever you decide to do, and be well. We'll see you next time. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.